Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law. I'm attorney Adam Hansen. We've got Shawn, we've got Tom, we've got Cody in our studio. And if you are missing some of our episodes, we would invite you to go online to our YouTube channel. Martine, right? That's Life, Death, and the Law. Search that on YouTube, and you'll be able to find past episodes that you can catch up with. I know you're dying to do that. And you can also pick us up on where you get your podcasts. I know, Shawn, you're an Apple guy, so you use Apple Podcasts, right?
No.
No, you don't?
No, I'm not an Apple guy.
Oh, that's a lie.
Spotify. I actually watch it on YouTube. I listen to it on YouTube. I get all my news. I get everything from YouTube.
Wonderful. Tom gets it from TikTok. So TikTok. The time is ticking on TikTok.
When you're searching it though, you have to search life, death, and the law using the ampersand instead of the word and. Otherwise, you probably won't find it.
You know what? Once you said that, this brought to memory this last week when I turned on my TV. We have smart TVs, that's like all you can get now. So when you turn them on, they come with this software that if it's internet connected, it has all these things right in your face. One of those was Wheel of Fortune. I did not know that Pat Sajak is no longer the host of Wheel of Fortune. I thought
Who is it?
It's Ryan Seacrest.
Oh, if you hadn't had enough of him.
Well, my concern is that Pat is dead. I haven't looked into it, but
he just retired. It was I think this year they made the switch to Ryan.
I assumed it was like a Supreme Court nomination. You just
like,
for life,
yeah,
a lifer,
sentence.
Yeah, like Trebek. But no. Anyway, fun little fact: Pat Sajak is no longer on there, but Vanna White is, looking just like she did in 1985.
She has a life sentence.
She has a what?
She has a life sentence. She'll be there for life.
She has a license, is that what you said? Oh, a life sentence, yeah. But she looks incredible. I'm thinking, man, she looked like that when I was a kid.
Good for her.
So whatever she's doing, keep doing it. Right?
Dan,
Shawn?
listening.
I don't watch Wheel of Fortune. I
don't watch it.
I have no vested interest in this conversation.
Back in the day, we had 3 channels: ABC, NBC, PBS.
Yeah.
So that was the programming that I watched.
When it came on, that was my cue to actually get up and do something outside.
Jeopardy?
You didn't watch Jeopardy?
No. I never knew any of the answers.
Exactly. Let's see here.
Morgan's Jeopardy?
Start with the vowels and then poor man's Jeopardy.
Gotta buy those.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we digress. Let's get to some more serious issues than Wheel the Fortune.
Let's talk about guns or climate or, I don't know, EVs.
I like guns.
Let's talk about socialism.
Okay. Well, we've got queued up.
Uh-huh.
It's like we knew ahead of time what you might say, Shawn. So just for you, we've got your favorite anchor of all time, Mr. John Stossel, talking about guns and the media lying to us about how good guys with guns are ineffective. The reality is they're incredibly effective, but we're not being told that. This is my understanding.
Yeah. And, the premise is very, very clear, and it seems so common sense that the more people that are law-abiding citizens that actually know how to use guns and carry guns, the less likely there are criminals that are going to offend in their presence. So whether they're in a shopping mall or a movie theater or a school or a place of work, if the bad guys know that there's somebody there with a gun that knows how to use them, they're going to think twice about it. And we've seen various instances where a good person has stopped what could have been a mass shooting because they had a gun and they were trained to use it. Yet those don't get media coverage like the ones where the mass shooter goes into a crowd where nobody has a gun and they're just able to shoot people unimpeded. But John Stossel is going to talk about the media spin on this.
Do you carry a gun? Bad idea, says Hollywood. Countless TV shows portray good guys who try to stop crimes with their own guns as fools.
Citizen's arrest, drop your gun.
The wise police officer sums it up.
Leave it to a good guy with a gun to really screw things up.
Liberal politicians agree.
A good guy with a gun will stop the bad guys with a gun. It doesn't hold up.
It doesn't, say experts, the media feature.
Good guy with a gun statistically isn't realistic. It's an adolescent rescue fantasy.
An adolescent rescue fantasy? Now, I'm no gun person. I was raised among lefty gun haters. I assumed Hollywood and the media told the truth. But then, 17 years ago, I hired the best data analyzer I know. That very tall guy on the left, Maxim Lott, here talking to the nearly as tall John Lott, his father, a criminal justice researcher who wrote this book. More guns, less crime? I was skeptical, and some researchers questioned Lott's data, but I've come to believe Lott is making a good point. In places where bad guys fear a good guy might be armed, crime tends to fall. Often just showing a weapon is enough to stop an assault. Police don't track such events, but these days some are posted on the web. Here an employee grabs her gun and the robber runs away. And again here.
3 robbers caught on camera breaking into a home in Atlanta. The men scramble to escape as the woman chases them.
When a civilian tries to stop one of these instances, they're overwhelmingly successful.
So why do all these TV shows lecture us about how it doesn't work?
The gun control groups brag about working with the screenwriters and the producers for the shows.
This group even boasts about its partnership with Hollywood and how they're consulted on scripts.
There's major star power behind an effort to rewrite the script on how guns are used in Hollywood.
They think they're making us safer because they believe FBI reports that say shooters being killed by citizens is rare. Why does the FBI say that?
They're simply missing a huge number of cases.
For example, the FBI includes the famous Pulse nightclub shooting.
At least 50 people are dead.
1 week afterwards, there was a similar attack at a nightclub in South Carolina.
There, a concealed carrier took down the shooter.
The thing is, it got virtually no news coverage.
49 people being killed is going to be a bigger story than 3 people being killed.
I understand, but the guy still had like 125 rounds of ammunition on him when he was stopped. You would think at least some of the news coverage would at least mention, here's another case that almost turned out to be the same, but it was stopped.
Also, remember the Parkland shooting?
At least 17 people are dead in Parkland, Florida.
Just a few months later, in Titusville, Florida, there was an elementary school that was having a big event at a park right next to the school. Had hundreds of students there, and a man came up, started firing his gun.
Police say the gunman was then shot by someone else who had a legally concealed weapon.
And was able to seriously wound the attacker and stop him before he was able to go and kill anybody.
The bystanders saved a lot of people's lives, says the police. But I never heard about that. Local media covered it, but hardly got attention beyond that. The FBI somehow also missed it. At crimeresearch.org, Lott lists cases where bystanders stopped shootings, cases that the FBI often ignores, like this one.
3 people are dead, several others injured.
Raul Mendez was at a party taking selfies with his pregnant wife, but then a guest at the party began firing at people.
Catches me in the right side of the head. Bullet entered right here, right by my ear, goes straight through my face and out my left eye.
Somehow, Mendez recovered.
I gained consciousness, and I unloaded 4 rounds and finished them off.
He probably saved the lives of a dozen people, including his wife and daughters.
Preventing him from, killing those girls.
You always carry a concealed gun?
I always do.
Why?
It's just about being prepared.
The FBI records instances like this, but somehow they have no record of your case.
They're not recording the true numbers, guns actually saved.
It's one of many cases like that the FBI is missing.
It happened. Why wouldn't they include this?
There's a lot of political views that people let infect their data. I had interactions with the people in the FBI. I had people go and tell me, well, I'm a Democrat. As a response, as if somehow that's how we determine whether or not to fix the data.
The FBI, who carry guns, are anti-gun. It's just not believable.
I think the people at the top, I think, are more politically motivated than maybe your rank and file FBI agent. If they think that it would go against the narrative that they want to go and push, then they'll fight you.
We asked the FBI about those cases they missed. They responded, their data is not intended to explore all active shooter incidents, but rather to provide a baseline understanding. Seems like they admit their data's incomplete. But the media sure don't.
This kind of outcome is rare.
This is very rare.
No, self-defense is more common than they say, and it does stop lots of crimes.
It'd be great if we could just get all guns to disappear. But the problem is that when you go and you ban guns, it's basically the most law-abiding good citizens who obey them. Every place in the world that's either banned all guns or all handguns has seen murder rates go up.
Why would that happen?
If you're primarily disarming their victims, you make it easier to commit the crimes.
But the so-called experts still say
there haven't been good guys with a gun who stop mass shootings. It's the kind of thing you learn from reading comic books.
I was prepared, and it saved lives. There's no comic book story about that. Those are facts. That's what happened. I was there. I'm sure there's many more out there that'll go unheard.
I agree with John Stossel. I often do. Not always, but in this case, he points out the hypocrisy that politicians are always asking for us to give up our guns, yet the individuals who would be giving them up would be the law-abiding citizens who would essentially be protecting their rights, their property, their families with those guns. The criminals are not going to be standing in line giving up their guns with any of these buyback policies or any other policies to restrict lawful gun ownership. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about this. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this. You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We're talking about gun ownership and whether it's a good idea for the government to do these buyback programs and try to get guns out of the hands of everybody. The first thing that I want to point out is the hypocrisy here, because they don't want to get the guns out of the hands of everybody. I don't think they're asking their security teams to give up their guns. I don't think they're asking the police to give up their guns. I hope they're not. I don't want the police to be giving up their guns. Sure, they could be asking, they could even say pretty please to the criminals to give up their guns, but I don't think they're going to be very effective in doing it. Who they're asking to give up their guns are the individuals who obtain them lawfully and are willing to obey the law and want this utopian society where nobody is going to come at them with an illegal weapon and take away their rights, including their life or, at the very least, their property. And that is the hard thing about it. That's the hard thing about any of these policies, whether it's socialism or whether it's, what's another example of this? Whether it's the affirmative action. They want other people to give up their money so everybody can be equal. They don't want to give up their own money. They want a policy where everybody else gives up their money. They want a policy to allow minorities into schools, but they don't want their kids to be displaced by other individuals. They still want their kids to go to these Ivy League schools. And so it's just a hypocrisy. It's if you want somebody else to have the opportunity, give up your seat, stand up, say, I've got admitted to Harvard or Stanford or whatever it is, and give up your seat to a minority and lead by example. But it's the masses that they want to control, and the same thing exists with gun control. They don't want anybody else to have guns, but they have security teams all around them that are heavily armed, ready to protect them. So I want to get your take, Thomas, Cody. I know that both of you are gun owners. I'm a gun owner. Adam's a gun owner. But some of you have concealed permits and you carry around on a regular basis. What is your position on whether or not that makes you safer or makes you a hazard to society?
Well, I think for me, carrying a weapon makes you safer if you use it responsibly. You can also be a hazard to society if you're carrying a gun. Depends on the individual who's carrying. Like, the criminal with the gun is a hazard. The law-abiding citizen is a protector. And I don't think you're ever going to get to the point in this life, in this world, where we're going to have a solution to that problem. I think the big error that government has is they're trying to legislate their way to utopia, where if we can just put enough rules in place, we can force everyone to be nice and get along, and then eventually we'll be at utopia. And it's just not going to work. Like, human nature won't allow that to happen. So the next best option is to fight fire with fire and to say, well, if I can't control you and someone else may illegally affect me, the next best thing I can do is have a way to protect myself. So I definitely do feel safer with the weapon.
%. I mean, I think the fact that I have an everyday carry and I carry with me all the time is certainly gave me a peace of mind, knowing that I can at least protect myself in any situation. You never go into a public store, a big box store, without having that on you. And I think really it's kind of disgusting that the narrative has been like disarm the population. Well, really it should be like, let's eliminate soft targets. I mean, that's really where these things are happening, where mass shootings are happening, or where they're disarming the population.
Yeah, where there's no gun zones. People that disrespect the law are going to go into those zones and say, I am now the king, the emperor. You're going to do exactly what I say, or at least I'm going to impose my will upon everybody here without any opposition until the police get around who have guns too. And that's what we see with the mass shootings, is there's nobody there. It's like a wolf going into a herd of sheep.
Soft targets.
Yeah. This story that they played with this John Stossel clip with Raul Mendez, he's from Surprise, Arizona. So he's essentially a local. He's at this party with his family. He gets shot through the ear. The bullet comes out of his eye. Yet he's got the wherewithal to recover consciousness, get the gun, and shoot the shooter here and save maybe a dozen lives, including those of his family. That should be spread across the news. That should be lingering on the news cycle day after day after day, just as long, if not longer, than any of these other shootings, because it shows how good somebody that is prepared how much good they can do and how much harm they can prevent, instead of just saying, okay, we've got another catastrophe where we disarmed everybody in this zone or this area, and then a crazy person went in there and killed them all.
2 weeks ago, we saw another school shooting. What is your opinion about teachers carrying firearms or having access to firearms in the school?
If done correctly, try to make it as responsible as possible. But that would definitely eliminate soft targets, as, to borrow Tony's phrase.
I mean, I don't think we should arm teachers. They're already hopped up on Prozac,
What?
They get it, right? They have keys to every room, and they know, how to get out.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea. I
like that, Cody, because the janitors know all the bowels of the school. They know all the secret passages. They know how to get there quickly. And they also, they're the silent informants. They know who's got a screw loose, right? And so they can keep their eye on these individuals. And if they've got a gun, go over the intercom. We've got an issue in classroom 6. The janitors are going to be on the spot.
And in my experience, I mean, the kids love the janitor. Like, I loved my janitor. Everybody knows. Why are you making that face, Cody? Oh, it is? If I asked my kids right now, they would know the janitor's name and they would have high regard for the janitor. And it was the same when I was growing up in high school. I mean, we all knew the janitor. We loved the janitor. He was a cool guy. Like, well, for all I know, maybe he was into child porn. I don't know, but to us, he was great.
Is that necessary?
Yeah. No. Thank you. Thank you, Cody.
So like that's why I made that face. I'm like, well, they're not.
But on the surface, okay? But the reason I bring it up, Shawn, is because you sent another clip a couple weeks ago about this interview between a cybersecurity guru and he was on that one podcast. What's it called?
No.
Well, he went on that one, but
Patrick Bet-David.
The clip that you sent me was Patrick Bet-David. Very interesting. But he gets into how he kind of has this hacker guy who talks about the passion that he's got for child traffickers.
Yeah, abolishing child trafficking and child pornography.
And he kind of fell into that and kind of made it his passion, in addition to other stuff that he does. And so anyway, that's why I brought it up, because it's fresh on my mind. I watched that clip from you, Shawn.
So yes, you don't hear about mass shootings anywhere where gun ownership, where there's a high percentage of gun ownership in those groups, right? You hear about the mass shootings where there's rules against having guns in that area, and so I don't carry a gun. All the guns that I have been gifts to me. I'm not a big gun guru, but I do see the relevance of the Second Amendment today just as much as anywhere else. And what I want to point out is all of these laws or policies or whatever you want to call them, where they're trying to eradicate guns, they have to apply all the way across the spectrum. They have to apply not only on the law-abiding aspect, but the criminal aspect and also the government aspect. If the government really believes the program, then they should be willing to disarm as well. But the government never is proposing to disarm at the same level they're asking their citizens to disarm. And that just goes to show they don't really believe in the policy. They don't really believe that the criminals are going to give up the guns and they're going to get them off the streets, and they don't need guns anymore to enforce the law. They just want to, I don't know, appease their constituency about now they're strong on getting rid of gun violence. And so they talk about it, but they don't believe it because all of them and their security details have guns and they don't want to get rid of them.
Yeah, I think that, just going back to what you can do about, let's say, in the setting of a school, if you don't want to arm teachers, you could do something else. If you take a small percentage of the funding that we send to Ukraine and you wanted to really, put it in the public school system, you could hire private security for every public school in America.
Yeah.
And they could have enough guards along the halls to where this wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, for less than what we're spending in Ukraine.
Utah's doing that. Utah just implemented a law where they passed it where they're going to have, I think, 1,200 security guards in the schools.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Funding is still getting there. Like I think they're getting like $500 per semester, I believe. But it's getting the legislation in place. It's getting to that place.
I'd be willing to bet that, some funding aside, we have so many volunteers in the school system for all facets of these extracurricular activities, swim or volleyball. You have parents getting involved. I mean, I could imagine you not needing a lot of funding, just saying as a school, we're going to allow you parents that we can vet. We're going to vet you ahead of time.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to volunteer to do this for us, we would love for you to stand guard or protect our kids. And I imagine you have parents coming out of the woodworks that would do that. I mean, they're already doing that for crossing the street in the crossing guard lines. And I imagine, I would be willing to give up some of my time during a week to go hang out at the high school again and relive my glory days.
Spend $5 don't have to give them anything other than like.
There you go.
You get a special hunting tag.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, go for it, buddy. You protected our school this year.
And there are certain individuals. I know there's a friend of mine that he walks around with a gun on his hip. He goes to church with a gun on his hip. And wherever I go when I'm with him, I feel like it's a little security blanket, It feels nice to have him by me because I know that things go down. He's got my back, and most likely people are not going to be pulling anything when they see him walking into the 7-Eleven. And it's not 7-Eleven here, it's Circle K. I was just up in Salt Lake. There's 7-Elevens up there. But when he walks in the gas station, if there was somebody that was, had it on their mind to rob the place, they see him walking in, they're probably going to postpone their plans at least.
Yeah, I remember as a youth, again, going back to high school, there was the town that I grew up in was near Tombstone. So that mentality of having a 6-shooter on your hip still exists, and it still exists today. If you were to go there and walk through a grocery store, you're going to find an older guy with a handlebar mustache and a 6-shooter on his hip. That's just what you see.
Well, and when the Colt came out, there was a wonderful saying, and Cody, we just looked it up. You can correct me if I get it wrong, but it was God created men and Colt made them equal. and you think about that. You get this 250-pound guy that's going to go in and with brute force impose his will on somebody, and you get this, 5'6" woman that weighs 110 pounds with a Colt in her hand. She's going to equalize things up pretty quick, and that's what I love about it.
My sister-in-law got pulled over not too long ago. I think like 6 months ago, let's say. She's coming home from the movies. We went to the movies. I think we got done around 8:39, and so she was heading back to the foothills from the movie theater, and she gets pulled over. And the officers in that particular case, they kept using the phrase, well, they asked her to get out of her car, and she said, no, why? Like, why do I need to get out of my car? And they said, for our safety. And she's like you said, you used that reference, 5'6". I think she is about 5'6". She's a woman. They have firearms. There's 2 men that have firearms, and they wanted her to come, and they're like, well, come over here. We need you to come over here in front of the car over here in the median. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't feel safe. And they're like, well, and she kept pressing them. Well, why? I want to be right here. And they kept saying, for our safety. I'm thinking, what possibly could this 5'6" woman do to you? You've already asked her if she has weapons in the car. She said no. You guys have weapons. So I don't understand that justification. But it goes to what you're saying. They have weapons, she doesn't. If she had a weapon, then it would be an equal force.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, not even equal because, they are bigger, stronger individuals.
True. But it equalizes it to an extent where she could defend herself.
If she had a gun.
If she had a gun. That's what I'm arguing.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. I think we got to go to break. So let's do that. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this. You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We talked about gun control, and we're pretty unanimous here that we believe that you ought to be able to carry guns. I don't, but there are several in this studio that do. They have concealed weapon permits, and I enjoy being in their presence and traveling with them, going into malls and everywhere else with them, because I know that if things were to go down with a shooter, I'm in good hands. Another transitioning over is I like to look at the stories in general and point out, okay, are we being equal? Are we being fair on both sides? And so I want to transition this to the police. I think police, for the most part, are wonderful individuals, the individuals that work for the police force and first responders. But it is human nature that when an individual gets a little bit of authority, they abuse that authority. And that happens with police because they're normal human beings. And so they've got quite a bit of authority. They carry a gun on their hip. They got a bulletproof vest. They've got tasers. They got pepper spray. They got batons. And sometimes they get a bit aggressive when they feel that they're encountering somebody that may have committed a crime. And they don't have all the facts. They're just trying to investigate it a bit. But sometimes they get a bit aggressive. Adam, you heard of a situation, or you're familiar with the situation with your one of your family members that got pulled over. You want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, I think in general, we were talking about with a lot of times when family have an interaction with police and it's a negative interaction, they'll ask me questions after the fact, like what could I have done or what should I do when confronted by a police officer. And I echo your sentiments, Shawn, in the sense of you always treat them with, I mean, they're individuals, they're human beings, so you're going to treat them with respect, regardless of whether they're being belligerent to you or being mean to you. This happened to you recently. You talked about your lake experience and what was that? That was a forest guy?
Yeah, it was
park
ranger or
how was that called?
Yeah, I forget.
That was just ridiculous, where he was completely overbearing to you and belligerent to you, and you're just meeting his
wanted to arrest me for not having the parking permit purchased prior to entering the parking lot. And I was trying to explain to him it's difficult to buy the permit unless he lets me get to the permit stand. And he had it in his mind already that I was gonna try to park there without buying the permit. And sometimes things get escalated. You got to think, what is the real crime occurring here? And is the level of enforcement
matching or
is it matching? You know, it's got to be in line with what the crime is. And so a parking permit, worst case scenario, write me up a ticket, stick it on my windshield, and let's move on. But he was threatening to arrest me there in front of my kids because I hadn't had the ticket permit or the parking permit filled out in time.
Not only that, but I think the more menacing thing to me was that my understanding was he had his hand on his gun.
He had his hand over his gun the entire time, and he was using foul language
in front of your kids, in front of you, and you don't use foul language.
No, it's not that I'm particularly offended by it, but it's just it's uncalled for. It's unprofessional.
It is super unprofessional. So anyway, you could have a good interaction with cops. I've had one where this was recently. My wife and I were driving to Phoenix, and we took Dead Cow Road. And when you go through Gila Bend, and you take that route, who was driving? I don't know if I was. It was my wife driving, so she was going a little fast. Not that fast, but she's going over the speed limit in that particular zone. It changes so frequently from Gila Bend to Dead Cow Road to Maricopa. It changes like 5 times the speed limit, so you're not quite sure where you're at.
There's a lot of speed traps there.
And this guy clocked her and pulled us over. And he comes to the window. He pulls up behind us on the median, and he comes to the window, and he's like, do you guys have a tow rope? And we're like, yeah. He's like, well, I got you for speeding, but I'm stuck, and I don't have 4-wheel drive in the vehicle that I'm in. Nice. And I was going to say right then, like, well, I'll pull you out if you don't give us a ticket, but I think that's a bribe. I'm not quite sure on the legalities of that. So I didn't say it, but he said it. He's like, go ahead and go. I've got somebody coming. But at first he was going to ask us to pull him out. I'm like, hey, yeah, no. See you later, pig.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so he was really cool about it. He was super embarrassed. I'm like, it's okay, man. It's not a big deal. Thanks for the freebie.
Pulled over too far on the soft shoulder and got.
We didn't just right on the shoulder. It was nothing. Yeah, it must have been just too soft for him. We had 4-wheel drive, but we weren't in 4-wheel drive. We had all-wheel drive as well. So I don't know what happened, why he got stuck, but he got stuck, and I was like, our lucky day. So we just kept on our way and said goodbye. Super nice though, but in that situation, I mean, he didn't have a lot of options. So. I don't know how it would have turned out had he not been stuck. Maybe he would have come with a little bit more aggression right off the bat. Tends to be the case.
So your whole story is this guy might have been aggressive if he had 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, I think so. It goes along.
Anybody have something that is actual, that's relevant here, not a hypothetical?
What?
Well, what's the difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law? Isn't that something that police have?
Listen, this is my retort to that, okay?
Okay, well, what is your point?
My retort is, I think police officers are incredibly jaded because of the work that they do.
Yeah.
And probably rightfully so. Most of the time they deal with scumbags, right? But I take issue with them treating everybody like scumbags right off the bat. They don't give benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, to the average person.
Because 99% of us are good, law-abiding citizens.
Right. That's my contention. So if they can have that perception of me when they pull me over right off the bat that I did something wrong or that I'm a scumbag, then I can have the perception that they're going to come at me with aggression, because usually they do, or overbearance or misuse of authority. So that is my perception of them. Is it well-founded? I don't know. Is their perception of me being a
You're
criminal?
I mean, whenever I see blue lights flashing behind my car, my heart rate spikes. And so I'm already nervous. I feel like I'm in a position where I'm vulnerable. And I think the police, they know that, and they shouldn't abuse that. They should say, hey, listen, this is the issue we want to confront. You were speeding. That's against the law. I'm going to consider writing you a ticket. Maybe they don't want to have a conversation. Usually they don't. They're either going to write the ticket or not. They generally ask why I was speeding, and then it goes on from there. But they certainly come at the situation in those types of situations with an advantage, because they have authority, and the individual there is subject to their discretion as to whether or not they're going to get a ticket, whether or not they're going to get arrested. Because a lot of these times, it becomes criminal as soon as you're 20 miles over the speed limit. And it's not hard in areas like that on Dead Cow Road, where it goes from 65 to 45 real quick. And so sometimes the police need to just consider that. We're already nervous as law-abiding citizens. So cut us a break. Give us the benefit of the doubt, like Adam is saying, that there was a good reason for it. Or let's just at least match the level of aggression with the infringement upon the law that was given. Like, was I really harming anybody by going that fast? Potentially, a car can kill somebody, and let's maybe address that. You know what? It's really unsafe here because there's a lot of illegal immigrants crossing the road right here, and so you could hit one of them. They could point that out.
We talked about, like, what do you do? So these situations happen all the time, and often, and Shawn, you're the same way, where when a family member, I started this conversation saying when a family member usually has an interaction with police, after the fact, they'll ask me, well, what do I do? What could I have done? And when we were talking about this during the break, Shawn, you're like, well, first and foremost, pull out your phone and start recording. Oh, and I took issue with that. I think that because of my mentality that I've already got this officer that is hyped up and trigger happy and hating my guts. He doesn't even know who I am, but he's treating me like I'm a criminal. The last thing that he wants is to be on film. And I think that just pokes the bear. But you're saying, no, they've got body cams. Why not document on your side?
And I'm saying this in a hypothetical, in a safe environment here where I'm actually not being confronted by the police, and my heart's pounding, my mind's racing, and I don't want to escalate the situation. I just want to get out of there as quick as possible, right? I want to either get the ticket and move on, or hopefully get a warning and move on. But I think that taking out a phone, I watch a YouTube channel about an individual that talks about what you should do and what your rights are actually when a police officer pulls you over. Are they allowed to ask you to get out of the vehicle? The answer is yes, they are. It's a very low standard or a threshold that they have to put forward, and that is if they think it's going to be safer for them with you out of your vehicle because they can't see where your hands are, they can't see what you're doing, although they can ask you to put your hands on your steering wheel, but they can't see all the nooks and crannies in the vehicle, right? Whether you're going to grab a weapon real quick and shoot them. So they can ask you to get out of your vehicle and you have to comply. They can't search your vehicle unless they have probable cause for specifically an illegal activity that occurred, like some illegal contraband in your vehicle. And so they'll ask you, well, can I search inside your vehicle? And you can say no. Now that may escalate it again, because again, anytime that you deny them what they're asking for, maybe it spikes their suspicion, or maybe it just kind of hurts their ego that you're going against what they've requested. And if you pull out your phone and you're videoing them, it also could potentially spike their suspicion or hurt their ego. I don't see how it could spike their suspicion if you're trying to get it on the phone, because you're just trying to be now on equal footings as to what's going on here. They're filming you, and they've got control of that footage. Why can't you film them and have control of your footage?
The time it's because they are so used to people just giving 100% compliance. Like, by and large, most of their interactions are, yes, officer, understood. I understand I was in the wrong. And then they send people on their way. So the one time someone says, oh, hold on, like, are you actually allowed to do that? That's a big, ego spike. But
yeah.
Like, I do this all day, and you're going to tell me that I'm doing something wrong?
For what purpose would an officer be offended for me pulling on my phone and videotaping what's going on, Cody?
Well, an ego spike isn't illegal. Like that should be a red flag right there. If somebody has a problem because I'm recording the situation because of transparency.
But it's going to escalate it, and the potential of them taking every measure that they can to make your life miserable is going to go up if you pull out your phone and start aggravating them.
That's why I'm glad I'm sitting with attorneys, and I have my trust here. I'm a client for life, right? Do I just say, hey, I'm going to call my attorney and ask him?
And if you said that, do you think that would escalate it even further?
Again, I think you need to know your rights.
Yeah, I think typically, so sorry to cut you off, Cody, but I think we're running out of time. But I think what I would tell my family members, and what I did tell my family members, is it's very simple. If you just remember this phrase, you're going to ask a question. If they come to you, you have to identify yourself. If they ask you to get out, you have to get out. But if they ask to search a vehicle, you don't have to grant permission. If they see something that triggers probable cause such that allows them to go a little bit further, they see a baggie of cocaine in the back through the window, that is open to the public. They saw it. Now they have probable cause to go deeper. But you do not have to let them into your vehicle, kind of like your home, without a warrant. You don't have to let them into your trunk without a warrant. You don't have to let them into your glove box without a warrant. Those are privacy protections that you have as a citizen. Maybe it goes beyond that because they have probable cause to get there, but in general, it starts with you don't have a right to my glove box, my car, or my trunk unless you have probable cause. So you would ask, am I being detained? That's always the question. Am I being detained? If they say yes to that question, then you're going to ask for your Miranda rights immediately. Then give me my Miranda rights. Once they read those to you, you're going to say, I want to talk to my attorney. I want to talk to a attorney. You need to provide that to me. If you don't have one on speed dial, you provide that to me, and then you shut up. That's it. If they say, if you ask, am I being detained? And they say, no, you're not being detained. We're just talking, I just want to get to know, what's going on and situation. Well, then we're done here. If I'm not being detained, then I'm going to be on my way. Am I free to go?
Yes.
That's it. And
Thomas, what's your response to that?
Not something that I really want to put on here, but the vehicle exception, you don't need a warrant to get in glove boxes. The court's the
okay.
What?
I thought you did.
Yeah, you do.
Someone has a marijuana cigarette.
Well, that's probable cause. That's what I said, probable cause for an additional crime that's occurring in your vehicle. It's not for speeding doesn't give you probable cause to search the vehicle.
A probable cause. You don't need a warrant to go into covered places.
Sure, but that's probable cause. And generally, you have to have a specific, for what crime? And you can ask them, why do you want to search my vehicle? What crime is it that you think that I'm committing? What is the probable cause?
Do they have to answer that?
Maybe they don't.
I don't think they do, but you can
it's a
ask.
reasonable question to ask. And then you ask, am I free to go? Because what crime do you think I'm committing?
The reality is what you need to understand is that the police are trained with all sorts of different tactics to get you talking and to incriminate yourself. And so just don't talk. It's okay. You might look rude or you might feel like you're being rude, but that is okay. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but they're not your friend in that situation. They're going to act like your friend because that's what they've been trained to do, is to get you talking. But the more you talk, the more you incriminate yourself. And so just don't talk. And you can tell them that. I've told them that. I've had run-ins with officers before, and usually I'll say something like, I'm not trying to be rude, but am I being detained? Well, what's your name? In this particular one case that I can think of right off the top of my head, they came to my house.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they said, well, what's your name? I said, you know my name. Well, you're not going to give us your name? No, you have my name. And then I asked, am I being detained? No, we just want to ask you some questions. I'm not going to answer your questions. And they kept asking, can we come in? Can we come over here? Yeah, they asked, and what they're doing is like, you give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to want more. So when you consent to a little bit, now it gives them a right to come in and to do all these things.
Can we come in and talk?
No.
No.
Yeah. And you sound like a jerk. You might sound like a jerk, but you can always say that. Like, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but no, I don't. I'm not going to answer your questions.
You represent the government. I represent the private citizen. You stay on your side of the fence, and I'll stay on mine.
Yeah. And that, you know, you hate to say that. I mean, we are pro cops. We are. But at the same time, if I have an interaction with them.
Pro cops against the bad guys.
Yeah. When I have an interaction with cops, I'm going to have to treat them like they treat us, which is like a criminal.
Listen to our show.
What's that?
Bad guys don't listen to our show. Only good guys.
No, we have great law enforcement people that we know.
That's what I'm saying. Bad guys don't listen to our show.
And we're talking about cops. I mean, we have so many friends that are in the police department or in the sheriff's department. We love them. I mean, they're fantastic people. You get some bad apples out there that give a bad rap for everybody. So I don't want to give the impression that we do not like law enforcement. We love law enforcement. They're doing a hard job every day.
Well, let me ask you something.
And I do want to get that sentiment out there because we have a lot of law.
Yeah, absolutely. So, absolutely. I admire cops, what they do. There are several that live in my neighborhood, and I feel safer because they do. I'm glad that they're there living around me, and I appreciate them putting their life on the line to keep our community safe. That's all the time that we have for today. We'll talk to you next week. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.